I think I have to go back because I think I now have sound. I can see the microphone moving. So let me just find my way back here. Okay, welcome to the 3HAG Way 11-part webinar series. We are kicking off with part 5 today. If you've been following along live, we've done 1 to 4, and I'll sort of recap that. Part 1 to 4 is also recorded, and you can have access to those recordings as needed. The Attribution Framework is one of my favorite tools because it really links where you fit uniquely in the marketplace to what are the things you need to decide to do as your company to get and remain in a unique place. Overview of the agenda. This is nothing new. You've seen this before. We're going to really hone in on the Attribution Framework. We'll set it up with what is strategy, what is a 3HAG. I don't think we can look at that enough, say that enough, as well as sort of line up sort of part 1 to 4 in the examples we created along the way. We'll have next steps, of course, getting ready for part 6, and we'll have some homework to do in between. So this is not a new slide, clearly an intro. I really think it's important to understand that the 3HAG, is founded upon the one-page plan from Verne Harnish. It got born at Perata Systems purely out of a need just to ensure that we are confident in our strategy, confident in our execution. In PayPros, Subservio especially, and DST, we got to validate and continue to prove this strategic execution system. That's what the 3HAG Way book is all about. It's just, laying out step by step, similar to this webinar, how do we put this in place? How do we keep it in place? I've been blown away by the feedback response to the 3HAG Way. So thanks everybody for providing feedback, writing reviews, and taking this book as soon in the first week to the #1 new release in business mentoring and coaching. So thanks very much for everybody for that. So key objectives of today. As we've been working through this, our last session was on core customer. So I don't want to leave out and forget the homework that we've done. So hopefully you've got a pretty good picture of your core customer up on the wall. You're talking about it with your leadership team. If you needed to, you did an analysis of the core customer using one of the 4 worksheets that we went through last time. And as we move forward into the Attribution Framework, why we did the core customer first is because, of course, that's who we're targeting to buy at a profit. That's who we're looking to serve their needs at a profit. So we're looking for white space in our marketplace that's really going to serve our core customer. And I'll circle back to that once we work through the tool. So the key objectives of today is, again, to confirm that we're all talking about the same language when it comes to strategy. It's one of the key things that we did within our leadership team is got clear that we all agreed and talked about strategy in the same way. If you ask your leadership team, if you're a coach and you ask the leadership teams you're working with for a definition of strategy, my experience has been that we'll get many different definitions. And one of the key things we learned with my leadership team is that if we agree on what strategy is and what the definition of strategy, it's much easier for us to decide what that strategy should be. We're all then looking and thinking about the same thing. The 3-year highly achievable goal came out of this. That's where we wanted to, pretty much align our execution from 1 year, 2 year, 3 years to where we needed to be, with our strategy in a position, a unique and valuable position 3 years away. I know in our very first session, we gutted our 3HAG. That 3HAG is still alive. And the reason why it's still alive is everything we've been doing to this point is to validate the gutted out 3HAG and to evolve it as needed each step we take. We'll never stop evolving the 3HAG that we gutted out. What we're doing in these today and what we did in the last few sessions is truly strategic analysis. We need to do it internally and externally. And today we're going to focus on the attribution framework. So you've seen this definition, Michael Porter's definition of strategy. And the reason why I like this definition is it keeps it simple. I can absolutely agree and see that we as coaches, we as leadership teams need to create a unique and valuable position for our company. And it involves a different set of activities. And these activities are interdependent. And we get to decide what those activities are to get us to the white space that is required. So what do we think about competition? And this was Michael Porter's view. I love this view because in the day where we were creating our first company, we actually thought we were competing to be the best. We really did. And that we're going to go to head with all the other payment service providers out there. What we learned is the most valuable thing we could do was compete to be unique. Compete to create that unique and valuable position for our organization and decide what those differentiating actions were going to be. And if we did that, then we would avoid competing with the rivals on the same dimension. And we certainly did. In both my first company, I wish we had figured it out sooner than we did, but definitely in our second company. It's where we started, it's where we finished, and it's why we were so valuable to the marketplace. This view is one we created to remind ourselves that strategy isn't a one and done thing. Strategy is a forever evaluate where we are, evaluate our position, and then have a good look at it, discuss it with our leadership team, execute a little bit, go back around, do that external analysis, do the internal analysis, but never stop looking at strategy. And if you walk away with anything from this, we always execute every day, but most companies don't look at strategy every day, and we need to actually keep it in focus. That's why the strategic pictures are so key to this process. If we are huddling every day with our teams in a war room with our strategic pictures on the wall, they actually stay in front of us. They actually stay in focus, and we actually want to do everything and remind ourselves to do everything to achieve it. So this is some of the different tools that we can use to actually create the strategic analysis. We've worked through some of them. We worked through the map, functional organizational design for our internal key process flow map. We're going to work on the attribution framework, which is in the external analysis bucket. And interestingly enough, the next session is going to be all about the activity fit map, which is on our internal analysis. And so these are things that, we have to look outside our company, and then we have to decide what to do inside our company. And we have to do this constantly. So the 3HAG was born, as I told you, in Perata Systems, maybe a bit by accident, but we're pretty happy to do so, being a subscription-based business and knowing that 3 years away is what we had shared with our board and our shareholders and what we had raised money on. And when we did that, we actually really didn't know how to deliver. But the more we got focused on a quarter-over-quarter plan, the better it was for our 3-year highly achievable goal. Now, we just didn't have a 3-year highly achievable goal. That's not what this is all about. We had this was absolutely founded on our core purpose, our core values, our 10 to 30-year goal that Jim Collins coined our big, hairy, audacious goal. That's our cultural system. That's an absolutely foundation of our team. We had our cohesive system that we actually used the framework from 5 dysfunctions. We just didn't use it once a year, but we used it regularly, every day, every week, every month, every quarter. We had our human system that we powered by top grading. We originally introduced a top grading back in the day when we had to hire A players all the time, 9 out of 10 times. So once you attract A players, as we all know, we need a system to ensure they remain engaged, they're growing, we can coach them, reward them. And then of course, we have the team leaders that sandwich all this together. And the key is it doesn't really matter what goes on in the house as long as we have these foundational pieces to our people system. The very top of the house are team members. They hold the reputation of our business in their hands every day. And everything that goes on in the house, including our cultural system, cohesive and human system, everyone needs to be included in these systems every day. A strategic system is one where we didn't say it's our, this is strategy. We called it a system because we never stop looking at strategy. It's why the 3HAG way exists. And then, of course, our execution system. And our execution system is all about what do we need to do today? What do we need to do this week, month, quarter, year to actually ensure that we stay aligned to our 3-year highly achievable goal, that stays aligned to our big, hairy, audacious goal, our 10 to 30-year goal. And of course, we can't forget our cash system. We know as a company and we know as coaches working with companies, if there is not a cash system in place, if we don't know how to make money, if we don't have cash, all our focus goes to cash and we forget about everything else. And so all of these systems are equally important. There's not one more important than the other, but we must keep them all aligned. So quarter over quarter, we're actually rolling everything forward step by step. And that's what becomes overwhelming, as we know, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as leaders of organizations. It's hard to keep all of these in sync, aligned, moving forward. So the 3HAG is a strategic execution system that drives confidence in predicting the future growth of your company and then making it happen. And we want to ensure that, our strategy is set down. That's why we're taking these steps on our internal and external analysis. And we want to make sure it aligns to our execution system in the organization. When we were building our first company, we definitely had core purpose, core values. We definitely had a 10 to 30-year goal, and we definitely had a plan to operate for the next, 12 months. And we broke it down into the quarters individually and our 30-day. What we didn't do well is we had in our plan, a 5-year super wild ass guess. And there was definitely a gap there because we raised a lot of money on that 5-year super wild ass guess. But once we raised the money, and why the 3HAG actually was born, once we raised the money, we really didn't have any confidence of how we were going to deliver on it. And so the 3HAG was born. We took the chance, reached out and said, let's go 3 years away. We had a big discussion with my team about this, talking about the risks of having a 3-year highly achievable goal rather than a 5-year super wild ass guess. There was risk on both sides, and we decided to take the risk that we could map our plan to. And mapping from our 1-year highly achievable goal to our 3-year, we thought was less risk than it was to go 1 year to 5 year. That's how we ended up with this. And that's why we actually started working and rolling towards, the 12 quarters, the 36 months. The more we actually laid that out and wrote it down, the harder we dug in actually to ask ourselves the questions and the clearer we got, not only as a leadership team, but our team as well. So the strategic execution system, I know a lot of people have an issue with the lanes, the swim lanes going from Q1 to Q12, going from right to left, where most forecasts we ever do in Excel and whatnot go left to right. The reason why it ended up looking this way, going from right to left, is purely because of the one-page plan, Verne Harnish's one-page plan. And we are trying to fill in the gap between our 1-year highly achievable goal and our 3-year highly achievable goal. And I know it's a little awkward for people. I've had lots of different feedback on that, but it's why we did it. It actually makes us think a little differently. And when we put our swim lanes up, I really like filling in the gaps between our 1-year highly achievable goal and our 3-year highly achievable goal. And it was just what we knew from Verne's one-page plan. So what we learned is the column 3, the 3-year highly achievable goal column, we looked at the bottom half of that column as our strategic column. So we wrote our statement, our 3-year highly achievable goals statement, just as we gutted it out in the first session. We had our differentiators. In the beginning, we gutted out, and today we're going to take another step towards making, validated them, making them more real. And of course, our brand promise with guarantee, which is definitely an advanced move. The top part of this was all about execution, really the results of our 12-quarter plan. How exactly and what were the results going to be if we did every step along the way in our milestones? And then, of course, our brand promise with guarantee is absolutely where strategy and execution meet. And it's why I call it an advanced move, because it's really hard actually to come up with a brand promise that matters, that will differentiate your organization without doing all this previous work. We can come up with ones that are probably out there as a brand promise, so we can put them out there. But a lot of times, if you're a coach or you're a company, if you look at your brand promise today, you look at your clients' brand promises today, are they plastered everywhere? Are they truly differentiating the company in the marketplace? Are they truly serving the need, the thing that matters most to their core customer through that brand promise? 3-year highly achievable goal is all about simplification, from the strategic pictures to aligning to where we're going, to keeping them focused, these pictures in front of us, and the plan focused, driving clarity within your company. And of course, the whole idea behind this is to create the confidence that you know exactly where you're driving your organization. We need to know where we're going to drive the organization. So step by step, you've seen this view before. We're on step 5, the Attribution Framework. The steps sometimes can seem pretty onerous. And as you're working with your team as a coach, you have to actually just, we're going to iterate through this. As a company, if you're working through this, you know what, we're going to do our best at each one of these steps, just like we did when we gutted out step 1. And each one of these steps, as we work through this, over the months, over the quarters, actually over the years, as this becomes clearer and clearer, this gets easier and easier. But the thing that I love most about working with companies now, I've worked with companies 3, 4, 5 years on their 3HAG, is it gets easier and easier and clearer on each one of these steps. So we're going to focus in on the 3-year highly achievable goal. We know that this is a key stepping stone to win. And I don't say that lightly. If we didn't find this way in my first company, we wouldn't have had the successful exit we did. In my second company, we exponentially increased the success we had through getting very clear on predicting our future. We gutted out our 3HAG, if you remember in part 1, and we just didn't gut out, the 3HAG. We actually, ensured that we had our core purpose, our core values, our big, hairy, audacious goal in place, and our profit per X. Then we gutted out. We answered those questions to gut out our 3HAG. Hopefully everyone still has that 3HAG in front of them, and they're actually, keeping it in view as we work through each one of these subsequent steps. Our part 2 webinar was all about our key process flow map. This was about getting clear on our functional roles in our organization, who was accountable for those, and as well, what does that look like from a perspective of how we make money? This is the high-level view of a key process flow map. This is how Perata systems actually made money. The colors, red, green, yellow, I've had a few questions over that, over email and whatnot, different methods. The red, green, yellow is founded upon a couple of things. One, how well that functional process is working. If there's things that we cannot live with, i.e. in the sales process here, there's some major problems that had to be fixed in the next 90 days. Implementation was yellow because there are some issues, though we can live with them and put our effort and resources on sales. And then the green is marketing, merchant success, and finance is operating well. And these would go, red, green, yellow, all these different functions would evolve quarter over quarter depending what was happening. We're also showing through this view the flow of information and the flow of cash. So hopefully you have one of these up on your wall. Now, this was the external analysis. We did this in part 3. This is the market map. This is getting clear on where your organization fits in the marketplace. Who are all the players in your arena? Where is cash flowing? You can also show where information is flowing. You can see what competitors are interacting with your core customers or partners. So this, hopefully you have this to a point with your team that it's now up on the wall and that we're keeping it in view. And that what we want to do as we roll month over month and quarter over quarter, we want to update this. You don't have to make this really fancy on the wall. You can do it with Post-it notes. You can do it with, hand drawn. The key is that we want to ensure it gets updated regularly as things change in your marketplace. The core customer is what we did in the last session. So hopefully you've done 1 or 2 of those different tools we talked through. You've discussed this with the leadership team. You're in agreement with who the core customer is, and you know what their needs are. In this example, Perata, Peter was our core customer, and what mattered to Peter was making money, and selling our solution easily, and that they never had to go back to support who they sold. That was what we had to deliver on. So that brings you with the strategic pictures, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to roll to part 5, which is our attribution framework. And the attribution framework is getting us ready to really get a good look at our white space in the marketplace. And with that, we're looking at that white space, and I trade this up now and then. Our white space equals a unique and valuable position. Our white space equals being on our own dimension. We really want to be on our own dimension, and we want to get our companies to our own dimension. But we've got to see where we play today to be able to see, is there any space for our organization to move to? And what can we decide to do to actually move our company to the white space in the marketplace that will matter to our core customer? So this is the attribution framework tool. I'm just going to show it to you right now, and then we're going to walk through it step by step. So there's 2 pages to this tool, and we'll ensure that following the webinar that you'll be able to download these slides as well as the tool. If you have the coach playbook from the New Orleans session, or if you weren't able to make that session, there are links out there for that playbook. This is one of the tools from that playbook. This is really focused on the company and the industry, the target market, not on product or service. And I just want to make that clear. It's a little different than some of the other tools that are similar to these that are out there. Blue Ocean has the value chain tool that's out there, as well as Francis Fry has a tool very similar to this. But again, we're focusing in on the target market and the industry. And once we actually come up with the key data, we're going to map it out. We really, truly, when I say we want to see the white space, we want to see the white space from how we graph it. Okay, so here's an example of Perata Systems using this tool. And I'll go into more detail on this, but I just want to set up sort of what the outcome will be from this tool. A couple of key things. We want to come up with the attributes of the market. That's why it's called the attribution framework. And a lot of people get hung up on the attributes of the market. Don't get hung up there. It's better to come up with a whole lot of attributes, whether they're nitty gritty or they're high level, but we just want to get some things in on the left hand column of the table. Then we want to assess the company. So in this case, it's Perata, and we assess the company. A lot of people say, well, that's not very objective because the company is assessing their own company. But truly, we just want to be as brutally honest as we possibly can about, on a scale of 1 to 5, how good are we serving these attributes in the marketplace. Then we want to pick at least 2 competitors. I've seen companies pick up to 4 competitors. But in the beginning, I always suggest 2 just to get going and get used to this process. Because the biggest thing here is when we pick the two competitors, we then want to assess them against the attributes that we just assessed our company, in this particular case, Perata. And we want to be as brutally honest as possible. So you can see there's been some ratings that have been put in. We took those ratings and we graphed them. Now, the key to this is that Perata Systems was a 5 for 24/7 service, and we were a 4 for the reseller program. We're for setup, multi-currency, we were 3s, back office, we were a 2, and merchant accounts, we were a 1. So we ordered these attributes across the bottom of the graph from left to right. So 24/7 service, we were a 5, reseller program and setup, a reseller program, we were a 4, setup, a multi-currency, we were a 3, back office, we were a 2, point of sale integration and merchant accounts, we were a 1. So you can see the red line with the orange dots is the Perata line. Okay, and that gives us a good idea of what we're good at today, what we're not so good at. And maybe we never want to be good at those things that are, currently rated as 1. Then we mapped our competitors. Competitor 1 was the green line, and we just assessed how they were serving those attributes. And competitor 2, we actually is fully the red line. And interestingly enough, a lot of feedback I get at this point is, but you said we didn't have any competitors because we're on our own dimension. The two companies that are shown here provided payment services, as Perata was a payment service company. We actually were just serving different core customers. And it's really important that, yes, they're in the marketplace. Yes, we get compared to them. But no, in our own view, we actually were on a different dimension. Right here, it doesn't look like that today. It looks like that we had decided on a few things, and we were actually trying to figure out how could we get to a different space than these other two competitors who are actually selling direct and using their brand to the marketplace. We're the last payment service provider to the market. And so what we looked at is, what could we do to make trade-offs? So what could we choose not to do, and what could we decide to do? Right? That's what strategy really requires. We have to make trade-offs. In this particular view, we actually were making some trade-offs, even that I would say we were naive in making those trade-offs. We weren't going to provide a merchant account. We weren't going to do POS integration at this time. So when we think about that, we did that naively, and I'll say that out loud at Perata. But once we got clear on where we could move to, where the white space was in this graph, if you look at it right now, it's blatantly obvious where there's some white space in this graph. So we had to think about what could we do? Would it matter if we could fill that white space? And what we did is we went back and said, what would be the things that would really matter to our core customer? Our core customer was a bank and an independent sales organization. It was not the merchant, the end user, the direct, who we actually learned this business from. And so we decided that 24/7 service was still going to be important to our core customer. We knew a reseller program would be important to our core customer. We knew that setting up their end user, so our core customer's end user, was important. How we did that, how we handled it, how fast we could do it. And we knew that because we were a global payment provider and we went Canada, US, and Europe very quickly, multi-currency was important to our core customers who are absolutely global as well. Back office was important, but not as important as if we went direct those merchants. POS integration, not as important, and we definitely didn't want to offer merchant accounts. That's why it's a 1. So our 3-hag line, when we graphed it, is this dotted line that's going across the top. You can see 24/7 service is a 5, reseller service, reseller program is a 5, setup is a 5, multi-currency, exactly what we said. This was the white space that we wanted to own for our core customer. Then, as you can see, we did our back office, we did our POS, integration, and our merchant accounts. On purpose, we decided not to offer those to be the best. And our competitors in the marketplace who are in our arena, who are going direct, were absolutely, doing some things differently than we were. Well, we remained focused, and we had to go out and figure out what were these activities? What were we going to decide to do if we were going to serve 24/7 service, reseller programs set up, and multi-currency? We're going to decide to do those the best. What's the how? What were we going to do? Okay, and that's where, this tool ends right here. And what we're setting ourselves up for is deciding on what those 3 to 5 differentiators, those interdependent activities, what are they going to be? So let's work through the attribution framework. Let's work through the tool. How would we go about filling this out? So the first thing we're going to do is come up with the attributes. Now, a lot of companies are wondering, and when I work with them, even our own company, what should go in there? We're not sure what the attributes of the market are. The key to this is that the attributes of the market are a view of what are the characteristics that you see in the marketplace that matter. And it might not only be to your core customer, but to the market. Let's just come up with the attributes of the market. We only come up with the attributes of what matters, what we believe matters to our core customer, we'll have a pretty interesting graph at the end of it. So it's all the attributes of the market. What I normally do when I work with leadership teams, I break the leadership team into a couple of groups and have each group come up with the attributes and come up with this and use the whole tool, map it. Because at the end of it, we want a full view of what the attributes of the market are and agree upon what they should be for our marketplace. So attributes of the market, we want to brainstorm them. There's no wrong answers here. Let's just come up with what we see in the marketplace. The next step is we're going to actually rate our company and how we serve those attributes, just as I showed you in the Perata example. Okay, and you want to do that one by one. Now, most companies I work with, including our own company, we can easily rate these attributes. If you find yourself rating them all 5s, I would challenge you to come up with some more attributes of the marketplace and characteristics, because you're just coming up with the ones that you guys serve the best. And we want to come up with all the attributes of the marketplace. Then we want to do the same rating for competitor 1 and competitor 2. Just as I showed you with Perata, we want to rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. Now, some companies I work with get stuck here, and you might get stuck here too, and the feedback is we don't know our competitors that well. And it's a really good idea, if you get stuck here, stop. And you can stop and then go, get a couple people to go out and do the analysis on competitor 1 and a couple to go out on the analysis of competitor 2. We know one of the biggest barriers of growth to any company is not having market expertise. It doesn't mean that we need to go tit for tat for these competitors, but what it means is that we need to know what they're doing around us. We need to understand where they're playing, because we want to play in a different place. Remember, we want to get on our own unique dimension. So we want to rate your competitor for today on each of the attributes on a scale of 1 to 5. The second page of this tool is, and this is where I see a lot of companies I work with until I'm really adamant about this. If you're a coach working with a company out there, ensure that the attributes get organized from the company that we're working with. So in this case, it would be Perata, and we're organizing them from how we serve the best attribute to the worst attribute, from left to right on the bottom. And we want to fill those in. So it's not exactly as you wrote them down in order on page 1, but we want to order them from 5, what you do well to what you do the worst across the bottom. So if you take the Perata example, we ordered 24/7 service as a 5, so that became in the first column. Across the bottom, then reseller, program setup, multi-currency, back office, POS integration, and merchant account, just as I worked through in the example. So we're going to write those in. Then we're going to graph the Perata line. And that's, we're going to graph that line first. It's good to have that view, take a step back and look at it. Then it's, the whole goal is to look at where your competitors are playing. So then we want to graph our competitors as you've assessed them. And there's lots of discussion. This can take up to easily an hour to do with the team. If you have a couple teams, working on this together, it can take even a bit longer than that to get everybody's view up there, to discuss the attributes at the end of this. I think it's a really important thing to spend time on so that you can see and agree the white space for your organization. So for Perata, it was pretty obvious where our white space was, and this is where we wanted to move to. Now, interestingly enough, I've looked at a lot of different attribution maps out there. And one of the key things is we see sometimes just everybody's in the same space with white space all over the place up above, or everyone's in white space above and there's all kinds of white space below. The biggest thing is that you don't need a lot of white space to move to. You might only, as a company or as a coach working with a company, need to tweak a couple of areas to actually own a unique dimension. Remember, that's what we're going for. So with this tool, we then want to go back. Once we can see the white space and we want to move to it, we then want to go back and say, within 3 years' time, we want to assess our 3-HAG line. So in 3 years' time, we want to assess the attributes to where we want to be, like I showed you with Perata. We want to go back and assess that. Decide what you want to be good at. And this depends, of course, on where the available white space is, who your targeted core customer is, and we want to rate the company as if it's 3 years away on a scale of 1 to 5, like we did last time. So the 3-HAG Perata assessment is definitely in the gray, and we definitely said, look, these are the 4 things we're going to do well, and these are the 3 things we're not going to do well. We mapped the line. We found the white space. We mapped the line. To come out of this tool, to actually finish off on this step, we want to have a view like this. Now, as I said, I have lots of companies that I work with. Even with our own companies, we had to go out and do some extra work in the middle to ensure we were truly assessing our competitors and truly getting clarity on the arena that we were playing in. So the market map is important in this, to pick the competitors that you feel that you're bumping into the most, and because that's going to give you an idea of where the white space is you can move to. So what are the next steps after this? So the attribution map absolutely ties to the next step that we're going to go through, which is the activity fit map. The activity fit map actually reflects the 3 to 5 differentiating actions that your organization will decide to do in order to serve your 3-HAG line that we just showed in regards to getting the organization to the white space. And so the reason why we've done the steps we have in the order we have is because we need to have visibility on the market and who's playing in our arena and who we bump into the most. We need to understand who we believe our core customer is today. And that usually, as you've worked through in the last session, causes a lot for discussion, especially if you grew your company through just saying yes and serving everyone in the marketplace. And that's okay. I have companies that have had that happen, but the more focus they get on their core customer, the better. As we move into the attribution framework and we move into the deciding on our 3 to 5 interdependent differentiating actions. So we're going to work through the activity fit map, and as I look at how some of this is laid out, we might roll right into steps 7 and 8 in the next session. The reason I think we should probably combine those will give us a bit more time to work through a couple of the other steps, which are the swim lanes, month-over-month P&L, and the brand promise with guarantee as we move through this. But we'll touch on a bit of the one phrase strategy and the activity fit map level 2 in the next session, just to get ourselves set up properly in order to move forward and come out with the swim lanes. So one of the things when we think of homework, why is this so important? I can't stress enough that on the homework, that with your leadership team, you break into at least 2 groups to create the attribution framework. And the reason is that where people get stuck is on the attributes of the marketplace. I find once teams get going on this, it's quite easy. They actually get great discussions, but I really think breaking into 2 groups create a better discussion than one group, one big leadership team trying to fill this out. It's actually pretty hard, and I think it sort of decreases the brainstorming around the attributes. Once you review at least the 2 groups attribution maps, maybe there's more, come up with up to 10 attributes that you agree upon that reflects the market. No more than 10, because when you get past 10, there's just too many. Normally, I've seen teams get up to 15 or 20 attributes, but normally they are subsets of a bigger attribute. So it's really nice to hone down to make sure the attributes are sort of the overview, the summary attributes of the marketplace. You want to create one attribution map after this. So going through the process with a couple of groups that we just stepped through, honing in after you've seen everybody's view and coming up with one attribution map is key. So one set of attributes, creating the grid and the assessment. And if you have to get out into the marketplace to do further analysis on properly assessing your competitors in the marketplace, that is fine. Please take time to do that. You've got to review the competitors, and we know that as markets are evolving and changing, new competitors are coming into the market. It's why that we normally, not only do this once, we're doing this regularly. We keep it up on the wall. We're assessing this on a quarterly basis in regards to reviewing what's been done and making the changes as needed. Once you can see some white space, that's where this gets exciting. We need to start talking about this and deciding upon what are the differentiators, what are the activities we're going to take. Agree on that 3-HAG line. That's the homework, because when we get into the next section, which is part 6, we really want to be able to have a good discussion around what we're going to decide to do, to actually put ourselves in that white space. Once you have all this done, put the attribution map up on the wall, keep it in front of us like all the other steps we've taken so far. Okay, so to wrap this up, we know that we're slowly marching towards getting our 3-year highly achievable goal in a confident position. It's not that we haven't gutted out our 3-year highly achievable goal, we have. In some cases, that is great, as we know, to get the bus pointed in the right direction. Everything we're doing now is to create the confidence we need to ensure that we're making the right left and right turns, or we go straight, or we need to add gas, whatever it is to the bus to get us to where we want to be in 3 years' time, that unique and valuable position, or to protect that unique and valuable position you're already in. This is the framework that and the view that my teams worked off of, just knowing that the house itself needed to be in place to ensure that our teams were open and willing and able and engaged to contribute to our strategy, to our 3-year highly achievable goal. Because we know when we have an engaged team, right, when we're executing something, if they get to weigh in on how we're going to get there, it actually creates a much better place and much more likely that we're going to, get to the place, that winning place we want to be in, than if we just, do that strategy once and tell people what to do. So the outside of this house is as important as what goes on inside the house. I can't stress that enough. We want to collaborate on strategy. We don't want strategy to come up with through one person. That's why this whole thing exists, is to agree on what we define strategy to be, and then to create that strategy together. And the more we create it together, the more we get curious, the more curious we get, the more we get confident, and we get clarity on where we're going. So the recording will be available if you want to go back, as all the others. We will have the slides and the tool available for download. Please work with your whole leadership team. And if you're a coach, work with the whole leadership team to validate the attributes of the marketplace. It is key to the attribution map. It is key to actually positioning your organization or the organization you're coaching in a great place. But the worst thing is not to take any action at all right now. So even if the attributes aren't perfect, you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say gut them out anyway. And even if you don't know how to rate every last one of them with your competitors, gut out what you think right now. And this is why we're not going to just do this once. We need to do this, iterate it, validate it, evaluate it, validate it. We really need to get this up in front of us. This is a pivot point to your strategy, understanding where you have room to move or what place you need to protect. So in part 6, we're going to do the activity fit map, what I call level 1. I don't think Michael Porter calls that level 1, but we called level 1 and level 2. We want to come up with the 3 to 5 differentiators. So I want you to start thinking about these. What's the how to get us to those, those positions that we pick in the white space that we're going to be really good at. This is the Perata example. These are answer the phone service. That was our 24/7 to be really good at that. White label reseller program. That was ensuring we had a program in the marketplace and we didn't really care about our brand being out there, but we wanted our core customers' brand to be out there. Multi-currency. We just needed, multi-currency worldwide. And we needed to be able to set up our core customers and users in less than an hour. Those were our differentiators. They're very interdependent. That's what the blue lines are. And I want you to start thinking about this as you work through your attribution map and getting your 3-HEG line drawn. So other resources out there, the book's been released. The Kindle has been released. Actually, that format has been updated. I want to thank everybody for the feedback on that. If you downloaded the Kindle version in the early weeks in April when it was released, go back and re-download it. There's a newer format where you can actually highlight, change font and whatnot. And the Audible version will be out. It's up and ready to go and will be released within the next 2 weeks. And so that will be out there as well. We will keep this program going, of course, the webinar program. I've been trying to get out a blog regularly with all the different questions I've been asked. Please keep them coming. And as well, we also have a video program on YouTube that was done a couple of years ago. So these recordings will be there. There's also a video program on YouTube. As well, we'll be getting out some dates for some 3-HEG workshops. And I know I'm doing lots of different workshops with different coaches around the world with their clients and whatnot. So thank you for that opportunity. It's been great. And then, of course, there's tools for download on my website, shannonsusko.com. Now, there's been a few questions that I've received along the way, and I just want to address a couple of them. I know people are looking for 3-HEG way examples. Even what I showed you at the beginning of this, the part 1, 2, 3, and 4, and now part 5 examples, these are the examples of the 3-HEG. And what I think I will do is, based on the feedback received, is get these into a document so that they're not spread out amongst a bunch of different PowerPoints and whatnot. But we can get them into one document so you can follow through those examples while you're working with your companies, or if you're a company working through this. It will give you sort of a view where you're getting the right outcome at each step of the way. Because this is all about outcomes to move the leadership team's thinking along and to create the confidence needed. So thanks for those feedback. We'll get that up there online and I'll let you know when it's up there. Just going to I've answered some of the other questions I got around the key process flow map, but there's a few other questions that have come up. And a lot of them around just, the key process flow map is one of them. What are the colors standing for? What flows through the key process flow map? And that's why I popped that example in at the beginning. The biggest thing is, as the key process flow map goes forward throughout, and you're working with companies with that, there are so many places it can evolve. In the beginning, we want to just know who's accountable for that function, because that comes out of the function chart. We want to know how that function's operating. And then as we get better, as a leadership team, as a coach working with the leadership team, as you get better, we want to get some leading and lagging numbers onto those functional processes so that we can actually see how we're operating and where we might need to spend time in order to actually improve that. So I have been putting together a huge list of all the questions that I've been receiving, and looking at the best way to get it back out to everyone. I know lots of different channels going on out there, from Yammer to email to Facebook groups. And I'll work with Haley Manchi to make sure that on our side, we get all the questions answered and get them back. A little bit as a FAQ document, so that as you're working through this with your clients or your company working through this, we get the questions all in one place. So keep them coming. I really appreciate it. We'll get the examples up there. If you read the book, you love the book, I'd appreciate a review on Amazon, and we'll let you know when the Audible version will come out later this month. So that's it for today on the 3HAG Way Part 5. I look forward to Part 6, which is really digging into our 3 to 5 differentiators of the companies. That's going to take place on July 3rd, 9 a.m. Pacific. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks very much. Have a great day.